call.
Thank you very much, Acting Deputy President. Well, it will be of no surprise to know that the Coalition will not be supporting this committee referral for a very long number of reasons. Probably the most important one is that the entire argument for holding this committee is based on misinformation, of lies, of hysterical activism, and in no way supports the future of Australia, whether it be economically, environmentally, or certainly for the people, the taxpayers and those Australians who enjoy great jobs which do fund their lifestyles and the first world life that we have in this country. The Coalition has never made any secret of the fact that once we're sufficiently informed about this project, the Middle Arm Sustainable Project, about the potential benefits and costs of this development, that we have been very supportive of it, because this project, the Middle Arm project, is incredibly important for the Northern Territory and for Australia as a whole. There's been an enormous amount of work undertaken in relation to the interactions between economic and environmental considerations in the creation and operation of this project. And this is the bit that I think is completely missing so far in this debate. The lack of understanding about the role that the Beetaloo gas project in particular can play in reducing emissions, in improving the quality of life for people in Northern Territory, and yes, increasing the royalties and company taxes and PAYG taxes that these industries provide to Australians. The Greens talk about who's going to fund more medical care, more social security. Well, guess who it is? It's mining and resource projects. Over $38 billion worth of wages and salaries paid to Australians by those companies. The vast majority of environmental projects in this country are paid for by resources projects. The corporate tax, 40% of Australia's corporate tax is paid for by resource companies. PRRT, already nearly $2 billion in the last financial year, paid for by offshore gas projects. This is the bit that the Greens will never talk to you about, is that it is these projects that pay the bills for Australians. It is these projects that allow us the luxury of having these conversations. And in the Northern Territory, a jurisdiction that is desperate to raise their people up, to provide greater services. They desperately need the taxes and PAYG jobs that these projects through the Middle Arm development will provide. So we took a leading role in government in assessing and progressing the Middle Arm precinct in our years in government, and in April 2022 we announced the $1.5 billion commitment to the project, which was subsequently matched by the Labor Party. And it came after careful and comprehensive consideration, and more than a year after the project was included on the National Infrastructure Priority List. So that consideration included embedding a clear focus at the precinct on advancing, in the words of the Northern Territory Government, low-emission hydrocarbons, green hydrogen, advancing manufacturing, carbon capture and storage and minerals processing. Because you absolutely cannot move to a lower emissions, higher energy economy and environment unless we bring on projects like this. There is absolutely no way to do it. There is no way that we can bring online the scale of renewables that is proposed by the Greens in the timeframe that will allow us to support lithium processing projects, rare earths projects, critical minerals projects. So it is an absolute fantasy to be trying to stop important gas projects which will allow us to have reliable and affordable energy in the next foreseeable future. It makes me very nervous about what happens when we remove those industries. If the Greens were successful and there were no more new projects, who is going to pay the bills? Who is going to pay the bills for Australia? Who will pay the company taxes? And the fossil fuel industry is paying, and the the resources industry broadly is paying huge company taxes, PRRT payments, $38 billion worth of wages in this country, which, if it was up to the Greens, we would be living under trees with absolutely no services at all. Absolutely no services at all.
Senator Hanson-Young,
and for every Australian mum and dad who have shares through their super funds in these businesses, who are benefiting in their retirement from these businesses, this is exactly the kind of financial security that the Greens would rip out from underneath us. So moral grandstanding about Australia's fossil fuel industries, coal and gas, may make some people feel better about themselves, but shutting down our industries will have exactly the opposite effect of what they claim they want. Because if Australia withdraws from exporting our high-quality coal and gas, global emissions will rise. The Beetaloo Basin has some of the lowest emissions in the world. And when we don't produce them, countries like Malaysia and Vietnam, who are building LNG import terminals, will go to Qatar, to the US, to buy gas. They will not be building the number of solar panels and wind farms that the Greens would like us to have, because it cannot support them. It cannot provide the reliable, affordable energy that they absolutely demand. So Australia has a clear choice. We either adopt the European model of energy security, offshoring our energy security, or we adopt the US model and make ourselves energy secure. And the Middle Arm precinct is a part of that. The Middle Arm precinct will allow for the development of important precincts, important gas basins like the Beetaloo, of which the gas will either come east and south down the pipeline, or, yes, be exported. But in either way, lower emissions gas is better for worldwide emissions. The Beetaloo Sub-Basin is one of the largest undeveloped onshore gas resources in the world, and development of this resource has the potential to create 6,000 jobs by 2040. It would transform the Northern Territory's economy and supply gas into domestic markets for decades to come. And 1 petajoule of gas can power 19,000 homes for a year, and the Beetaloo has approximately 200,000 petajoules of potential supply. And when you don't develop supply, like Victoria, we're seeing the result of that. The results are coming home to roost, and the last thing we need is more bans and more moratoriums. We, the Coalition, support strongly more gas production, more widely, and we committed in government $108 million in government to deliver on this gas-fired recovery, a fraction of the royalties, company taxes and PAYG taxes paid by this industry. So the idea that the taxpayer is funding fossil fuel industries, gas and coal, is just not true. It is a fraction of the income that this country receives from that industry. We talk about read the budget. The risk of hysterical activism to our economy and to our environmental standing is incredibly dangerous.
Senator Hanson-Young, please.
But what do we hear from the Greens and the Teals? Because, be clear, they are in partnership on this. We hear hysterical language, global boiling. We've moved from global warming to global boiling. Next will be just pure evaporation. And despite the Greens and Teals presenting themselves as fair and reasonable, it is hypocritical, their scare campaigns and their lack of understanding of the sheer economics and environmental outcomes that this country is trying to manage. They don't have real solutions to cost of living issues facing Australians, and despite skyrocketing energy bills, instead want to turn off affordable, reliable, traditional energy in order to make a few feel better about themselves. And instead of engaging constructively, they've come here today to try and damage Australia's prosperity, to damage the Northern Territory's economic future, and to shut down this critical infrastructure project. Middle Arm will deliver thousands of permanent, high-skilled jobs in new and emerging industries. It is set to bring billions of dollars to the Northern Territory and federal economies and continue generating wealth for our country. Yet the Teals and the Greens want to throw all of this away. And I say to Territorians, be very afraid, because this is proof that the Greens and Teals are coming after your jobs. They don't support these foundational industries. They grandstand for the sake of grandstanding. And I say to anyone who works in the resources sector across Australia, that's all 1.1 million of you. 1.1 million Australians who are directly employed by resources industries, that the Greens and Teals are coming for you too. Because when there is energy shortages, when there is electricity shortages and the new mines that are on track cannot meet their safeguard targets, when we cannot develop processing for critical minerals like lithium, like rare earths, where do you think the investment goes? It won't be here. It will not be in Australia. We are already seeing investment decisions made in preference from Australia to Alaska, to Canada. Qatar is eating our lunch and filling our export markets. It is critical that we continue to press back against the fear-mongering and scare campaigns that come from these groups, because they will damage Australia. They will ensure that our children don't have any future at all, because we will hand our responsibilities to be high-standard, high managers of resources projects, something that we are incredibly good at in this country. We will offshore that. We'll offshore that to countries with higher emissions, with less high standards for workforce, for environment and for tax payments. We will offshore those to someone who does a worse job, and Australians will be left the poorer for it. Australians will be left the poorer for it. So we stand at a turning point, and we have a very clear choice. Do we continue to allow this hysterical claims to continue coming from the Greens and the Teals that will damage Australia, it will damage us economically, it will damage us environmentally, or do we say enough? Do we say enough? Enough of your hysterical. Step back, because we know that it is from these projects that Australians receive the taxes to pay for our health system, our education system, for the NDIS, for schools, for roads, for hospitals. That is our choice. And the Coalition says we will not allow this to go on. We say enough. We will protect Australians, we will protect Australians' jobs, and we will protect Australian standards of living. Thank you.